Morning, Andra. Welcome to the Call Mom podcast. So grateful to have you with us today.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
So, this is something a little bit different for us on the Call Mom, and I'm really pumped to be doing this because for me, the topic of eczema, I think in general, is just really personal. Growing up, I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I grew up in northern Maine. And I remember all of us except for my brother Mark, the one that comes after me, but 4 out of 5 of us had awful eczema growing up. I just remember, especially my littlest siblings, my parents always had socks over their hands so they couldn't scratch themselves. We were always taking baths in oatmeal and Aveeno. It was we all have scarring from eczema. And I just remember one, this was 30 something years ago, but then 2, we lived in a pretty remote area. But I still remember my parents throwing us all in the van to drive us to all these different doctors, allergists, dermatologists, all these different things. And I mean, we didn't eat any dairy, we didn't eat any of that stuff. When you're a kid going to a birthday party, it's you can't have cake, you can't have ice cream, you can't have all this stuff, because my parents were just trying to see what would help us, and they never really found a solution. It was almost we had to just grow up and keep putting ointments and creams, and then I think a lot of us kind of grew out of it over time. I'm not really sure. I don't know anything about eczema other than those memories that I have, but I know I'm not alone. And I know, my parents are not alone, and you certainly have, your own history, but I know a lot of our listeners probably experienced something similar. So I'm really believing that today is going to be so helpful for so many moms. But before we get in, just tell us a little bit about your story. I just want to hear about, your kids and how you ended up becoming so passionate about this work you're doing today.
Yeah, I so feel for you and your siblings and your parents, because
Yeah.
we were in that exact same boat. I mean, I started this out of necessity because I was I was in that exact same boat. This had never been an issue for myself or my husband, and I had my third daughter, and she was just born with eczema. It was crazy. And then at the same time, I
Wow.
had 2 other kids at the time. I had a 4-year-old and 2-year-old, and my 2-year-old came down with eczema, literally a cold. It just came on that quickly, just whole body fiery red. And newborn babies, are red and dry and kind of flaky initially anyway. And I didn't know that right away, but she just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And by the time, I mean, even just 2 weeks old, I was like, what is going on? And it was, it was just fiery redness and burning pain, and their skin was just falling off, and it was crazy. And I took them to the doctor, to the pediatrician, as one does when your kids are
Yeah.
sick. And they offered me just these temporary band-aids in
Yeah.
the terms of bleach baths. They said, go ahead, throw them in the bleach. And I was like, what?
No
and
way.
and 2 separate prescriptions of steroids for both of them. And he said, you wear some gloves yourself to put these on your babies. And my baby was a month old, and I mean, it still just makes me so emotional thinking about it, thinking about that situation in that doctor's office. It's just you have no answers for me, only chemical steroids and things that I know to light their lungs on fire. I can't move forward with this path. And I had to find another way. And so I eventually did incorporate this just whole holistic protocol that can be managed at home, because that's where I was at home, working from home at the time, in dental, doing OSHA seminars for dental professionals. So the career I was in was vastly different than what I was trying to do. And I just saw from the research and everything, I had to overhaul that, and I had to change kind of everything that was going on in our lives and just control alt delete it, really. And that's what made me, once I got it all figured out, and just knowing how many people, there's going to be at least 20% of your audience, likely more, that's dealing with this issue directly, which is really unfortunate and is really alarming, actually, because eczema is an autoimmune condition. But just in learning everything that I did, and knowing that you can overhaul your child's health, you can restore your family's vibrancy. That's what made me start Eczema Kids and take a step back from my dental career.
Wow. Okay, so let's kind of start at the beginning with eczema. I think there's probably cases that are really obvious, right? But can you just briefly, like, what is eczema? How is it different from just having, an itchy spot or rash? Or how would you know if your kids had eczema? And then you're mentioning it's an autoimmune condition and that your kids started experiencing it really, really young. So, like, what's kind of the most, or like, what are some of the common genesis of eczema? Like how do we get it so young? Is it genetic? Is it environmental? Like where is this starting?
So if you were to look up eczema, on Google, which is where I started and everyone did, right? You'll see the term atopic dermatitis, and they categorize it as an inflammatory skin disease. And what anyone who's experienced it and tries to heal it knows is it goes much deeper than that.
Mm.
That if you have eczema, just one little spot, and I guess the difference between eczema and just like a little rash is like you would know, like a rash could come up very quickly just from some sort of inflammatory assault that you didn't know would obviously trigger that sort of a reaction, but then it would subside, right?
Right.
Eczema is persistent, like just like this will not go away, and then it starts to travel. It's like a really mobile type of condition as well. And what's going on is, what we know to be true is that there's a lot of digestive dysfunction there. You're not absorbing the nutrients. There's leaky gut, there's liver stagnation, there's lymph stagnation, and there's things that are going on inside your body that's not creating a functioning skin barrier. And then
Yeah.
and then they're so sensitive, they're reacting to everything that's coming toward them, right? It's like this inside out, outside in type of thing, where like this everything that's getting put on the skin is being absorbed, and then everything
Mm-hmm.
that is not being detoxed by proper channels is going out through the skin, and it's this really dysfunctional give and take until you kind of reboot and get yourself out of it. So that's what was so alarming to me, is like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
all these things are going wrong with my kids. And that's what was so anxiety provoking for me, is like they're really unhealthy. I mean, eczema feels like this, not big deal term, but as I
Yeah.
mentioned, it is an autoimmune condition, and I don't say it to stress anyone out. Like I want, it's just like this is your signifier for change. And for
Yeah.
us, I mean, that siren was so loud and intense that we had no choice but to change. But even if you just have one little spot, that's something to pay attention to. That's saying your child needs some help and they have suboptimal health,
Yeah.
and that you need to do something about it.
Wow, that makes so much sense. And when you're talking about these different things like the gut issues and all the other systems that are not functioning as designed. And then you also talk about eczema showing up in a really young baby who's probably just consuming, breast milk or formula or something. It's not like chronic, poor diet for decades or something like that. Talk to me a little bit about then where does that start? Is it something genetic? Is it like where, if we're seeing it in really young babies?
Mhm. They inherit our exposures,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And as I mentioned, I was working in the dental industry. I was uh, a dental assistant at the time, and also working on the admin side at OSHA seminars. But my time in the dental office was really deleterious to myself. And unfortunately, like, the fetus that was growing inside me, my third daughter, was when I was working in that office. And, that's a lot of exposure to radiation and chemicals and, things that I still beat myself up about, every day. Like I try to
Yep.
pick up, but, all those things, like
Good.
everything that you're consuming. And I mean, even just like to your high school job, like I was just thinking about, like I worked at a photo lab and all the different chemicals there, and I was a lifeguard for a long time and all the chemicals there,
Yeah.
like it's just they inherit
Yeah.
their exposure. And like, my gut health was not optimal, right? Like I wasn't
Yep.
digesting like amazing. There were things that I couldn't eat at that time. And it just, I think, my inflammation bucket was full, and that transferred to them.
Wow. 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 Okay. So you let me know where you think's like a good place to start, because I think I really want to hear about, for women who are experiencing raising children, right, with eczema, where are some good places for them to start their journey of, like you said, control alt deleting, maybe things that they're not even realizing are having such an impact. And then I'd also love to talk a little bit about, for the children who are experiencing eczema right now, what are some of your recommendations for some relief?
Yeah. So, I mean, start in the kitchen. Like, that's like the biggest thing that we can do as parents, right? You are in charge of everything that's going into your home, and you're grocery shopping, and you're preparing the meals, especially if your kids are young. And even if they're older, like, I highly doubt they're going to the grocery store and, like,
Yeah.
spending their own money on these type of things. So, right. So
Right.
there's a lot that you can control, even if your kids are older. And that is your responsibility to routinely serve healthy, nourishing food. But everything that we recommend, like in our healing diet, and I just recommend, following this healing protocol for 90 days, like that is enough
Huh.
to make the shift. And it may sound long, but like, that's, you have to get over these IgG half-lives, and really, really detox these triggers out of the systems. So make it digestible, seasonal ideally, because then you're inoculating your gut with the correct microbes, right? And there's just like general rules that to follow. Like, we're in the summer right now, and so that's just a high produce season, like high carb season, right? There's everything is being grown, and there's a lot of fruit, and there's a lot of veggies, and and high quality gluten-free grains that you properly prepare. So you're properly preparing everything, you're cooking everything in correct sources of fat, things like that. You're pairing them in a way that you can digest them, like you're not eating like fruit with meat, things like that.
Yeah.
Start there, because that, and my baby, I was nursing her at the time, so I was following this eczema protocol. I had to omit coffee. I had to,
Mm.
take away like fermented foods, like even wine and vinegar, things like that. And it's really getting down to this basic way of living, or basic way of eating, which isn't hard. Like, last night, we had grilled chicken and broccoli, right? It's not
Yeah.
about spending a ton of time in the kitchen. It's just being a little bit more intentional. So start there. And then, simultaneously, I started with this just non-toxic symptom management protocol. And I started with herbal oils, which is
Okay.
derived from this ancient practice, this Ayurvedic practice called Abhyanga. And when you massage your body with infused herbal oils, the lipophilic properties just bring in those nutrients, those anti-inflammatory, those detoxing nutrients into the tissues, and just help with that cell regeneration. And then it also helps with protection, because their skin barrier isn't there, right? Like, that's what's going on with eczema. And then it honestly helps, like, turn things around. And we had an anti-itch spray that helps deal with staph. It's like got real Chinese medicinal herbs in there that deals with staph, also cools down the itching, so we could sleep. And then you follow that
Yeah.
up with just this really nutritive tallow cream
Hmm.
it's bioavailable, and it helps infuse their skin and their tissues with nutrients that they're deficient in, like vitamin A, D, E, and K. So I I sell all those things now, because you got
Okay.
like, that was like a big part of our healing, is that, because you also just have to deal with like how uncomfortable they are. And
Yes.
my kids were waking up through the night, and so nobody was sleeping, and that was making their healing take longer. And also, it was obviously hard for myself to manage. And then
Okay.
you're going to want to like reduce as many triggers as you can environmentally, in the place that in your home that's that again, you have control within the four walls of your home. And there's a lot you can do in terms of air quality and water quality and mold and EMFs. You just
Mhm.
reduce the inflammatory assaults that are hitting them all the time. And even if your kids are older, they're still spending the majority of their time at home, because if you include the sleeping time, it's a
Yeah.
lot. And then I started to incorporate supplements. Once you get those things under control, you can start to do supplements. And a lot of my a lot of my clients are young, like, they have young kids, and they
Yeah.
aren't pill swallowers, and that's where we were, right? My
Yeah.
baby obviously couldn't, but there's still a lot you can do to address those nutritional deficiencies, and help promote the production of glutathione, which is our body's number one detox molecule. It's a liver enzyme, and that really goes a long way in restoring those detox pathways. And then we go into testing, and I did that for my littles, but my baby was too young to do testing, right? She was
Yeah.
under 12 months old. And so that's what I recommend doing for anyone, no matter what age they are, because one, testing is really expensive and heartbreaking, right? When you have little ones, like,
Yeah.
it's tough taking them to a phlebotomist, and you have to have two, and to get the enough blood in the vials and stuff, right? It's a tough go, and it's also expensive. So if you're doing all of those things, you will see a huge improvement. Likely you will have reversed it. And then if you haven't yet, then you're missing something like a bacteria or a virus that could be uncovered through testing. So
Okay.
that's what we did. That was our progression, and that's what I teach my clients to do. And it's a holistic plan that sincerely produces results.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And the fact that you've lived through it sucks. But then on the flip side, it's like the fact that you've lived through it and you can put together this plan for families, because just hearing all of that, I'm like, that would be overwhelming to me. Like, it's comprehensive, right? It is holistic. Okay. I kind of want to go back to some of that. Let's start with the nutrition. Um, I would assume like processed foods, right? And things that are inflammatory. But aside from that, what are some of the things that we would want specifically to remove from our diet? You talked about fermented foods, coffee, some things that can be really triggering or causing inflammation that would then worsen anxiety. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, eczema.
Mm-hmm. Which are linked, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, like I mentioned, it has to be digestible, and low histamine is a big part of it. So
Okay.
that's why you take out the fermented foods. And then there's also like a dysbiosis happening, obviously, in the gut if you're experiencing eczema. And so candida is a problem as well. So that is another reason that you'd want to take away those fermented foods, or anything with yeast in it, or anything derived from yeast. And this is why
Yeah.
you want to take out vinegar, healthy foods, like, and then bone broth is a really high histamine food. Again, like a very healthy, nutritive food.
Yeah.
And we recommend it if you eat it within 24 hours of making it, but you don't want it to, like, sit for longer than that, because the histamine levels just compound over time. Fresh foods, because again, for the histamine. But yes, even the so-called healthy processed foods, you got to take those out. It's and that's really the biggest change. That was the biggest change for me,
Okay.
and the biggest change for my clients. It's like, we're so conditioned to using those and relying on those. It's a hard transition. So, if you feed them for snack, like grapes, it doesn't take more time. It just, you just wash a whole thing of grapes and put them in a bowl and set them out. That is nearly the same as grabbing a granola bar.
Right.
Um, but the best thing you can do is just make it so that their bodies can actually derive nutrients from them, that you're not doing things that induce heat in the body, right? There's already
Mhm.
so much heat. Like, you could feel
Yeah.
the heat coming off of my
Yeah.
baby, like
Yeah.
like 5 feet away. She was a furnace. It was horrible. So, things like black pepper, chocolate, that's just
Mm.
things that you can just intuitively know, if you actually think about it, like, oh yeah, this creates heat in my body. Those type of
Mhm.
foods you'd want to steer clear of while you're healing. And then and then those hard to digest foods, the dairy, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
obviously the processed fruit sugar that drives inflammation. We treats every night. Like my kids have always needed them, right? But like there's still, you can still have those things. You make them at home, and you use real sweeteners like maple syrup, and it really isn't without. I like to think about all the things that you can have, and there's such a fruitful bounty out there. There's so many different plant species, and there's so many different fruits and
Mhm.
lean animal protein, things kids like.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do.
Wow. Okay. And then as they started to heal, are there foods that you were able to reintroduce, or do they still follow as strict of a diet?
Oh
Yeah.
no, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
my kids now are 9 and 7 and 4, and my little guys too. So, 9 and 7-year-old are out there, right? Like all the time, and we homeschool. So then they're in extra activities, so they don't like look too homeschooly. And so they are like, there's treats for everything. Like yesterday they did tennis and they get rewarded with nerds. Like, I mean, it's just like that in every single extracurricular. They eat
Yeah.
everything, and they eat a
Okay.
ton of dairy, and you know, I just still maintain this. Like I buy nutritious food
Yep.
at home. And yeah, now we eat chocolate and all the things, but for that 90 days,
Okay.
it is pretty important. It's pretty imperative that you just take out those extra inflammatory foods.
Wow. And that's amazing to me that your gut can make that much of a leap in healing in just 90 days. Like that doesn't even seem like a really long time. Like that's really cool.
Yeah, it's not, and you're you're changing the bacteria, right? Like in a good
Yeah.
way, and you'll stop wanting those processed,
Yeah.
heavy foods. Like it really, there's just like this like body intelligence that starts to kick in when you stop feeding the bad bugs, right? and,
Uh-huh.
and pay more attention to inoculating your gut with the good bugs, and your kids change along with them, and this, I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, will change them for life.
Wow. Wow. You also mentioned environmental triggers. Can we talk a little bit about those? Like, what are some of the things that parents should be really looking out for? And then what are some swaps that they can start to incorporate, or things they should just be cutting out altogether?
Hmm. So, I mean, we were filtering our water, and it sounds like your parents were doing those things and not eating
Yeah.
gluten and dairy. And that's where we were before all of this happened, like our eczema storm, and that's where all my clients come to me at. It's like, I'm doing these healthy things. I'm obviously not eating Cheetos in a mold-filled house all day. Like,
Yeah.
why are we experiencing eczema to this degree? And there's things that, you start with like this air quality check. It's really imperative, and you don't realize the off-gassing that's happening from like a new couch or other furniture or different finishes, floor finishes, rugs. I mean, there's so many things that you maybe unknowingly bring into your house that are really, they're off-gassing and continuing to trigger your kiddos. There might be a mold problem, and there's an easy way to check that from home. Like, these are all things that you can do, that you can
Mhm.
order, that's not crazy expensive, that you can do from home.
Mhm.
And then you definitely are going to want to filter your water. We had an RO filter, reverse osmosis. Not ideal,
Mhm.
right? 'Cause that's dead water. It's, so you're
Yeah.
not meant to live on that long term. So there's a lot that you can do there. And I mean, gold standard would be a whole house filter, because that bath and shower water is a
Yeah.
big source of chemicals for them. And so that's something that you need to contend with. And there's different levels of price that you can do, that it doesn't require a whole house filter. If you can,
Mhm.
that creates some amazing results. And then as far as EMF goes, I mean, if you have solar in your house, you're getting fried. I love solar.
Mhm.
We have solar. It's just, there's things you can do, right? And it's just like, and just another thing, you just need to pay attention to these things. And there's a lot that you can do. You can do shields and things that you can do for free, like just turn off your Wi-Fi, right, at
Yeah.
home while you're
Right.
sleeping.
Yeah.
Right? And like, that's when they're most susceptible, and yourself as well. And
Mhm.
there's things you can do to hinder the dirty electricity that's coming at them as well. So if you just address the air and the EMF and the water and the mold, you will have come a very far way, and you will have reduced the triggers by a significant percentage. You can never get to like, zero like emissions or triggered home, but there's so much you can do. I mean, and then obviously like the cleaning solutions and the laundry, but that's where you would start as well. Like everyone that's coming to me is not using like Blue Tide and be like, well, everyone knows like that's step one is right, unscented clean laundry detergent, and I just clean my house with tea tree oil and water, right? And I just mix those in a spray bottle. So, and use baking soda and I use vinegar to clean, but they didn't eat it for a long time. But like there's just so much that you can do to help your kids out in this way, and it helps you out and your other kids that aren't suffering in this way. I mean, it's a big thing for your entire family.
Yeah. But if you were to say to start anywhere, start with the diet first, right? And then you can kind of,
right, because it's like the thing you can control just within this hour, right? It's like the next time you feed them, you have to feed them all the time to make that digestible and fresh.
Okay. I want to ask you, because we do a lot on the show about the mind-body connection, and we know that our thoughts and our anxieties and our worries and our stress levels and all of these things produce a physiological response in our body that can drive inflammation. So I'm curious, with anxiety in particular, have you noticed, or is that on your radar also, about like how we handle emotions, stress, like all of these different things that can be tied to the physiological responses?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, I guess, part of what stressed me out as well when I was doing the research. Is like, oh my gosh, is my baby so stressed? And my toddler's so stressed. And what can I do? And, like I said, you control what you can control, which is like all you can do in every aspect of life, right? Your marriage, and I mean, every single thing. It's like, okay, some things you have to let go, and you do everything you can, which, as I said, is a lot. And I like, we have like little tools like, what's it called? There's like this little turtle and Zenimals. Sorry, it's really cute. It's just like a EMF screen-free way. It just incorporate like a little bit of meditation for them. As they're drifting off to sleep, we use essential oils, like diffusers and rollers, things like that. The herbal oil is, I think, a big reason that their skin calmed down. It calmed down their nervous system, just applying it, and that physical touch, with kids, it's just, it's a really important, fundamental need, honestly, for them. And so the herbs are doing their job, but it's even the application is just calming down their nervous system. And with your kids, there's not a lot else that you can do aside from just being as calm as you can yourself. And I know for me, I was freaking out, right? And I was exhausted. And I honestly can't even really, there's some of it that's just like a black hole. Like I would just research at night in between night wakings, right? Like I was not sleeping, like literally not sleeping for months. And we got through, though. There was a lot of outdoor time that we did. Like I was working from home, so we would just walk and go to the park and those type of things. I think that was really helpful for everyone's nervous systems and our overall healing. And just be as calm as you can. I think I just didn't even have the energy to act any other way. So that's where we were, and it produced the results.
Yeah, and you're on the other side of it now, helping so many women.
Yeah, that's the goal.
It's beautiful. Okay, so that was amazing. For the people listening who can relate and who feel probably so exhausted and maybe in a place of despair, and they've tried everything and they're like, okay, I need all the things. I want to know more. Where can they find you? Where can they learn more from you? Where are you at?
I host the Eczema Kids podcast, so that we drop a new episode every Tuesday. I'm at eczema-kids.com, and we have a natural eczema solutions course that takes you through step by step by step by step. So this is like a sustainable, doable process for you. And then I offer skincare, as I mentioned, the herbal oil and the anti-itch spray and the tallow cream. Those help reduce the symptoms, just that alone. That's like the easiest first step to take. And then we have other things that just assist your healing journey, like prebiotic tea that helps heal and seal the gut, some ragweed free pillow spray, just help them go to bed and just create that like soothing, calming nighttime ritual. So it's all there, eczemakids.com, and that's where I'm at.
Perfect. We'll put that all in the show notes for you guys. We'll link to her podcast and to her website so you can check it out. But man, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the education that you're sharing. Thank you for, taking your own family's story and then turning it into so much good for everyone out there that needs it. So really grateful for you. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I just know likewise for you as well. Like, we know it's our moral obligation to do this.
Yeah.
To figure this out. And I just know there's so much suffering in this capacity going on. So
yeah,
that's what drives
thanks.
me.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.